share an office with a colleague who has a standing desk and never sits down. Never. So I never had to sit Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Koyan Parikh Shah, and I direct the Center for Leadership and Wellbeing here. It's a huge pleasure to welcome you, join the team of people welcoming you to Cleveland, if you are not from Cleveland, and to welcome you to HB for this really exciting conference. Because it's just a chance for each of us to spend a little bit of time thinking about the kind of person we want to be, the kind of school we want to be part of, and share with one another. And that's really important. I don't think it happens automatically. You really have to make time for it. And I do know how much effort each of you has made to carve out this space and time to be together in this room for the day, together in this room for the next hour. So I'll start by acknowledging that from each of you. You all said yes immediately, and that just such a rush of support and collaboration that felt great from HB's point of view. It felt great personally, and I can't thank you enough. So I know that we're in this room together for a reason, and I hope that what we talk about together and what we learn together takes us to someplace great. And that's my goal, someplace great, and as yet to be named. So let me introduce our panelists, and then we'll start a conversation about the incredible work that they do. So we're here, joined in the center is Alan Gates, who's Executive Director and CEO of the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. And this is Kirsten Ellenbogen, and she is President of the Great Lakes Science Center. And this is Natalie Romaine, who is Director of the Cleveland Botanical Gardens, which is now merged with the Golden Margarita. And that's been an exciting and amazing learning process for Cleveland, for Golden, and so that makes something that we talk about. I'm going to ask each of you to start by sharing a quick description of the public-private collaboration that your institution has created. So, sort of what are the key elements of that public-private collaboration, the way you define it and the way you craft it in your organizations?
Sure. So it is a treat to be here, and we love this topic. And in fact, you'll hear some of our difficulty will be because we do a lot of things together. Sometimes we'll have to say, all right, are you going to talk about this? So I'm going to talk about one that we started at Great Lakes Science Center, but we don't own it per se, and it's one that involves all the other cultural arts organizations in the community, as well as schools and businesses. There is something called a STEM Funders Network in the U.S., which is a lot of small private foundations that have come together, like the Noyce Foundation, that founded Intel, as well as places like NASCAR that focuses on STEM education as part of their foundation arm of that organization. And they all got together and they're funding 27 communities across the United States to do what they call ecosystem work, and it means that we are being pushed to really think beyond any one organization and look at learning as something that happens across an ecosystem in a community. And that the cultural arts organizations, or STEM-rich institutions, if you want to call us that, because that is what we are on the panel here, as well as schools, corporations, foundations in the community, all came together to write this proposal. We were selected as one of the 27 communities. And in fact, I just left a big design charrette meeting of that where I know Evelyn's staff was there. I don't think your staff were there today, but they have been at some of the other meetings. And so it's very much a work in progress, but it's an extraordinary process to have the corporation, we have the economic development director of Cleveland at the meetings, many school districts represented, and it's an exciting partnership.
So I'm going to get a little more specific and talk about some other partnerships that we have going, and it is building on an ecosystem. So you guys just had lunch, need to wake up a little bit. Anybody guess what this is? Tube. It's a tube. What kind of a tube? Excellent. Mastodon tube. So I'm going to hand it around. This is actually something that we have at the museum, but it's an important part of the program. I just wanted to tell you about a little bit. And we put it in the hands of every second grade student in the city. So as part of Again, another collaborative effort that involved both the institutions on either side of me as well as several other institutions. We have a unique partnership with the public schools in Cleveland. And at our museum, it's called Inspire. But basically the idea was we went to the school district and said, we want to form a true partnership. We want to do something about science education, and we want to do it now. And we together developed curriculum, decided what grade, with the idea that this was going to be built into the curriculum for every single student and teacher in the district. Not something that was just for some teachers or for those that were more able to get things together, but how do we really have an impact for every student? So it starts with the idea that we really want, I'm just, not much on the slides, just something to look, we really want to bring science to life. I'm sure that at all of your schools, great things are happening in science, but that's not true at all of the public schools. And when you look around at a community like ours, you have resources. You've got a science center, a botanical garden, and a natural history museum. How can we make that part of the formal education system? Field trips are great, visits are great, but let's do something a little bit more and a little bit more radical. The idea is real science, so that thing that I'm handing around, you're passing around right now, real science, it means real science education. And one of the things that we're often asked is, how do you get kids' attention? How do you get them away from their phones and their iPads and everything else? I'll tell you, when they see that tooth, they're not thinking about their phone, they're not thinking about anything else, they do what all of you would do, and pick it up and want to touch it. The program is not optional, it is built into the scope and sequence of every second grade curriculum for the year. It's how we teach the standards. We started with the standards for second grade, developed a curriculum that goes into every classroom. Then every school is scheduled for a full day at the museum where our educators are demonstrating great science education using the resources of the museum. There are pre-visit materials that go out, there are post-visit materials that go out. We have a family day because it's important to us to engage families in continued learning. And we have other partners around the community as well. So not only with all of the cultural organizations, but with the public library and the school itself. We've done formal evaluation, and what you're seeing right here is, you guys, anybody here teach like second grade? So you remember, I remember when I had to learn omnivore, carnivore, herbivore, and their big long words and their vocabulary words, and how do you teach that to kids? Well, you start by bringing out an opossum. And the opossum is a creepy looking animal, right? You know, like it crawls around on the tabletop, and our educator hands it a grape. And, oh, it picks it up in this creepy little hand. And she does this, and it's great. It's like, well, I guess it eats fruits and vegetables. Puts out a carrot. Sort of turns its nose up at the carrot. She says it's not really hungry enough. Plus, it's waiting for what comes next. So hope it don't gross anybody out. What it brings out, they bring out a mouse, a dead mouse, put it down, and the opossum happily eats the mouse. I will tell you, I will never forget that an opossum is an omnivore, and neither will those kids when you actually see that in practice. And then another part of what we do is hand them a box full of real skulls and casts, like that too. And 95% of the time, that's the first thing they pick out of the box. And the idea is that they've been through some part of the curriculum. It's like, how do you tell what that was? Omnivore, carnivore, herbivore. And then they sort them. They go through a sorting activity, and they're using critical thinking skills. It's actually really working. And we've done some evaluation to show that it lasts beyond that visit. And I want to share just one brief story because I think it demonstrates why it means so much to us. At the family day, we invite every second grader to bring their family back to the museum. And this is so important because every major city around the country, cultural institutions face a hurdle of how do you really invite and bring in the citizens that live in the city, often from economically depressed areas, that really welcome to come in. Well, you have their second graders invite them. They've now spent a full day at the museum. They own that museum. And they bring their parents through. They take them around. They show them they're the guide, which helps reinforce their learning. But at the last one we had in May, it's at the end of the school year, last May, this one teacher, the one parent came up with her 2 little girls to one of our educators, and she said, I just have to thank you. I never knew my daughter was so smart. And so, you know, having that impact on family learning and encouragement and a feeling of success, you can get that in a very non-threatening, open, fun place like our institutions. And so that's why we're trying to take this program and really have an impact on our city.
There's something about, for both of you, and when this is a partnership of looking at corporations and that kind of connection, this is looking at second graders and partnering with them in seconds. This idea of an informal setting, right? Our schools are structured places, and there isn't any structure there, there is a structure there, but the immersion experience doesn't have structure to it. So it's sort of this sort of tapping into the power of that informal learning experience because it can be really powerful for our students. I want to give Natalie a chance to share the key points from her public purpose. Charlotte.
So I'm going to stand up because I'm shorter and I can't see everybody. And I know you're all teachers, so you're all used to standing up too. So it's always a privilege to be on the panel with these two, and I always learn something. And at the garden, I guess, I have some brochures here you can see later. We really take the immersion principle to heart. Clearly, we're in Cleveland, so our season's really April through November for a program we call Green Corps. And it's, we target public school kids around the ages of 14 to 18. And we target them because we want to be a garden for the city. And we do field trips just like the other two museums we've heard from. We do teacher training, we do all of that, what you would expect. But this program is truly an immersion experience for youth who really don't have access to local food, or at least fresh organic produce in their neighborhood. And they want to lead, so they're not just taking a summer job. There's lots of summer jobs that they could take, but this summer job is truly, and they are paid, by the way. This is truly for their community. They're growing healthy produce, what was currently what formerly was a vacant lot, and they're turning this blighted area into a really vibrant oasis for their community, while they're learning about curriculum that is correlated to their 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year, depending on where they are in school. They're also, of course, earning minimum wage, and so that gives them an extra incentive. I don't know how many of you work with 14, 18-year-olds, but money is a bit of an incentive. And I'll never forget these girls. Some of them come over and they apply. They show up for their first day on the job, and these are learning farms. These are city lots that are obviously grown into beautiful gardens now. But these girls are in heels. Fabulous shoes, but they're not gardening shoes. And where do they go to the bathroom? And they would point to the porta potty. And this is not, this is not comfortable work. There's no air conditioning, rain or shine, or 800 degrees, bugs, and they learn so much more than obviously about photosynthesis. Of course, they're learning about that as they're working, but they're learning about teams. They're learning about preparation for the workforce. They're learning self-confidence. I have a similar story that always chokes me up about a girl who's went through Green Corps with us 3 years, and now she's a student at Case studying engineering. And she said to me, she sent me a note, which a lot of them do. It always makes me feel good. But she says, "You taught me so much more about gardening." She said, "You taught me how to love myself." Because we just never know how these programs are going to inspire these kids. And so I brought a little jar of salsa, just again, a little show and tell. It's not a tooth, okay? It's not a She did tell me she wanted to go before. I forgot that, so I'm sorry. Well, you put it away now. It's really good salsa. I will. I don't have chips. This is what we call Right from Downtown. They named it themselves. This started about 10 years ago. They started selling it at the Cleveland Indians Stadium, actually. And these kids really came up with the idea of what they're growing in their gardens, what could be brought as a value-added product that would sit longer than 2 weeks. So we worked with some local chefs, and we partnered with some advertising agencies. We branded it, and we sell it at a variety of local stores. But they grow the tomatoes, cilantro, onions, garlic, all the things that are needed in the salsa. Not the entire volume that we need, but it's authentic that it's coming from the Botanical Garden. And then they prep it, and of course they don't bottle it. We do get that outsourced. But it's truly a way, they're so proud of it, and they're proud of everything they grow, but that's something that they can take to, with them to a different party or something and show off what they do. So that's, and I'll probably pass these around too. Again, if this were a different part of the year, I would have asked Koyan to maybe do a field trip at one of the farms or one of the gardens just to show you how we do public
Amazing.
purpose.
And if you've ever read the book Seed Folks, I know some of the people from HB have read it because it's part of our reading here. When I visited the Green Corps Gardens for the first time, I thought of that book. This is just like walking through the pages of that book in real life.
It's based in Cleveland.
And it's right, it does, it actually is written in Cleveland. The Botanical Garden's been in Cleveland for a very long time, but the Green Corps hasn't. So I was wondering if you could tell us a story from the beginning of the Green Corps. How did it move? Because I know that there are a number of people in the audience right now or in the conference in general who have an idea in their head and heart that they'd like to turn from idea to do all those action steps to make it something that truly exists. Can you tell us a lesson from the beginning of Green Corps? How did it start? How did it start?
So, again, this is about a 20-year program now, it's 20 years old. It started very differently from what it is today. It started as really an afterthought. The Botanical Garden, which is over in University Circle. You probably all come from cities with botanical gardens, and we didn't have really a community garden program, but we were given an opportunity to take over a little vacant lot over on 66th and Chester in the city. It's about 3 acres, and teach some kids after school. And these kids came to us through the Juvenile Detention Center. And they were not paid, and of course this was a volunteer-run effort. We asked some volunteers, I wasn't there at the time, this is the story I was told. Volunteer had a heart for this, and she said, absolutely, I'll come after school and work with 7 kids. And they were about that age group. And so they cleaned up this 3-acre lot and designed these gardens, the community gardens. And over time, we started to say, well, listen, this is great, but we started to look at our purpose, which is education, and youth empowerment, but truly education. So let's work with the schools rather than the juvenile detention home, which is fine, but they have other outlets too. So our mission then turned to work with the schools, and then of course that site could not keep more than 15 kids busy. So then we started to look for some different other sites across the city. And then, of course, we would go to the school in that area because we wanted the kids to be able to work where they lived. We don't supply transportation for these kids. They either take public transportation or they walk. And so we, of course, started raising money because then we started to really need more teachers that knew what they were doing. And volunteers were great, but we needed somebody that was on a consistent basis because then this was something that really became an after-school program that we were buying into. Some point down the road, we asked for an endowment. So the Botanical Gardens, very small endowment, is about $10 million, and over half of it is now for Green Corps. So that's how much we've raised over a really 10-year period, because the first 10 years really weren't endowed. And we continue to raise money. That's not all. It takes a lot more than that to pay minimum wage to each of the students now. And some summers we've hired up to 800. This summer we're down to 40 for funding reasons. Obviously we need at least 2 teachers per site because you don't leave teenagers alone if someone has an accident. So there's that expense, and then of course there's plants need irrigation, they need all kinds of things, and so that capital infrastructure is also part of the budget. So over time, we have used obviously partnerships with the school district to guide our curriculum, but we've partnered with so many other institutions, banks who've been corporate sponsors like Kirsten was talking about earlier. They come and they give the kids lessons on financial literacy, what to do with that paycheck. We hope they'll get them to save it and understand what to do with it. And we partner with college preparatory nonprofits who help them write college applications, because we know they're probably their first year college bound, coming from families that hadn't learned that. So we really try to enrich the program beyond the gardening day to really prepare these kids. So the program has grown over the last 20 years to really be an effort that's shared by The Cleveland Clinic is a partner. They give the nutrition classes, and a lot of these outreach nurses talk about obesity, they talk about sex, they talk about all the things that are on teenagers' minds. And so we don't do it all. We're just gardeners, but we figure out how to help the whole teenager.
Kirsten, the collaboration that you described when you introduced yourself is a pretty complicated one. Can you share a lesson from the beginning of that? Because that's the other piece of this. A lot of people here are trying to work across traditional lines of cooperation.
Sure, so one of the big things that came out of this complicated intersection between organizational agendas and project or collaborative outcomes. And what we've had to be very explicit about is stating what our organizational agenda is, putting it on the table, and then moving it aside. And one of the lessons that we've learned is actively stating that agenda and saying, well, I'm a science center, and so I'm in this because I value the power of using STEM education to transform our community, and putting that on the table and setting that aside and saying, I get that you're here for economic development reasons, and you're here about bringing more corporations into the community. That ended up being very powerful, because when we started the conversation, we could not even come close to all agreeing on what are the shared outcomes that we want. And the more we started just being explicit about our organizational bias and setting it aside, the more we found that actually STEM education and economic development and all these other organizational agendas that were represented at the table still had common outcomes around stronger community. And that as long as we were willing to say, yes, when we're in this room and when we're playing well together, we have this outcome that is not the same outcome that necessarily matches our mission exactly, but it's one that we value. That was very powerful, but it only came when we started just being explicit about our own bias.
So somebody asked the right question, somebody listened in a really intense way, and we found that shared trust.
Yeah.
Evelyn, in your organization, the programming that's happened with the second graders or with the entire Cleveland Metropolitan School District, which the scale of that project or that collaboration is much bigger than you might have first anticipated. There are a lot of moving parts and pieces to it. I know that you've looked and you continue to evolve that model. Can you talk a little bit about some of the best practices? What distinguishes good programming from bad? And I'll start with that one then. What's the difference between good programming and bad?
So I think one of the reasons that we've had the success that we've had to date, and so far we're in the 4th year of the program. In the first 3 years, there are about 2,400 second graders, and we've reached all except one classroom of about 20 kids every year. So really, that's far beyond what I would have expected. And I think one of the keys to that was really sitting down at the beginning and identifying what are the true hurdles. So the true hurdles could be everybody wants to do this, but what's preventing a teacher from signing up? So the fact that it's not optional means it's not, a principal is not saying yes, no, or I want to do something else. We found practical things, like we not only pay for the buses, but we arrange for the buses, so that the teacher doesn't have to figure out when they're going to do it, and we also tell them what day they're coming. So we don't have scheduling who can come when. So the teacher is given, here's the day that you will be coming to the museum, and all you have to do is get the kids to the front of the school and on the bus. They don't have to do anything else. And it sounds trivial, but actually that's one of the biggest hurdles to making sure that everyone can participate. And then just constantly working back and forth with our partners to make sure that we're talking about what's working, what's not working. We just did a formal evaluation and got some great feedback from the teachers and from watching, what the students were and weren't responding to. And so we go in and then have made some changes to the program. The teachers were saying, this part's just a little too long, they're sitting too long. So we put some activity back into it. And I think you can't sort of do something and say we're done. You have to continue to sort of look at how do we make it better and how do we find a way. And we worked with a great facilitator that's also working with Great Lakes Science Center, an evaluator, someone who can come in from the outside in a very non-threatening way, really help us get beyond biases and sort of what we want to see and help us see what's really there and what's, in some cases you find out things are working better than you thought, which is really amazing. In other cases you realize, we have to change it. And so we've already made some changes.
good programming from bad, and best practice?
Oh, good programming, I was thinking of partnerships.
Oh, partnership, that's fine.
Well, good partnership is when everybody is in, and when those shared outcomes are clearly known by everyone, and everybody knows their role, and it's very clear, and as Evelyn said, communicating that on a regular basis. We've had examples in neighborhoods where we've had great partners that have done those things for us, where they have worked with the neighborhood and gotten community open houses scheduled for us. They have done their job and gotten great students to apply and help us with all the references that come after that for the job and all of those things. And then we have other partners that don't respond to our calls for safety help or just a variety of things. And I think it's because, again, the capacity of your partner, knowing that they're able to do what you need them to do at the outset. But thinking that they're going to eventually grow to become a partner that you need them to be is a bad plan. And we've done that before, where we're like, oh, they're just so well-meaning, and if they just get this grant, then they'll be able to help us. And later down the road, who's paying the bill? Me. And then at the end of the day, you just start to, it's not an equal partnership, and it's not going to be successful. And I think, from our standpoint, from the second, so Evelyn's got the second grade, you've got the seventh, the Gardens has the third grade. And we have not been able to do the wonderful, the breadth of and depth of the experience that Evelyn's institution has offered to second grade families. We do pieces of it, but we simply just haven't had the resources to do that. But we definitely value parents understanding that their kid had a wonderful experience, and then we try to get the busing arranged, we pay for the busing. But simply the capacity for an institution to solve all of those problems for the school and erase all of those barriers is really depending on the ability of that institution. And they've raised money and you've done well, but at some point the school has to start having some skin in the game, and I think some do, and you could talk to that. You're much closer.
Yeah,
to it.
we're sort of, so this is when you're talking about how you get something off the ground and you do something. There are a couple different ways, and this project is one which has worked. So when we first got together with the school district, we just said, let's go. We need to do something for these kids, and to be honest, we jumped in. The first meeting was in January of our staff, the school district staff. We started that program the next September, so there wasn't a lot of let's spend 3 years planning that. We have a program with the library that's part of it, where we started with a few pilot branches, saw how it went, and then expanded out, so you go a little bit more slowly. But I think as you're thinking about this, because one of the goals of this whole project is to have kids have real science taught STEM from every age, from pre-K all the way up through 7th grade. We've got every grade at least with an institution that's taking it on, except for 6th grade. And I would love to take that on, but we're out of space at the museum right now. So part of what makes that work too is thinking about what each institution can really bring to the project. And it's going to be different. It doesn't need to be an all-day thing at the institution for every institution. I think one of the challenges we've had is helping the school district understand that maybe doing a garden at each school would be a more effective thing than having them come to the Botanical Gardens. So we're at a point now where we've got actually a workshop planned for April, which is being hosted by the school district, but we're working with them to bring the facilitator in that I talked about, bring all the institutions and the school district to talk about, okay, what's working, what's not working, and how do we fund this long term? Because you can't continue to raise this kind of money every year. So part of it was, let's demonstrate how powerful it is, and then let's get the schools to think, you know what, we really do want to make this part of it. That worked really well in New York City, where they have a program called Urban Advantage, where it started out as an NSF grant, it probably started pre that, but NSF, and became so powerful that it's now completely part of the New York public school funding for this particular program. So you have to do some convincing. There's unfortunately no sort of one straight, life is great, everything falls into place. But we're at a point now where it's time to step back and say, look, we got some great things going, but sustainability means how you sustain it financially too. And so figuring out how we take this from what it is now and grow into an even stronger program.
other challenges you want to point out, or something else that you've learned that you could call it a mistake? Something that should have been done differently?
How much longer?
If
Sure. That's easy.
I knew now what I, or if I knew then what I know now.
Yes. So let's see, Cleveland and Northeast Ohio, we really have a city regional thing going where there are many, many examples I could give you across the community where we say, yes, we're Northeast Ohio. And if you're not from Northeast Ohio, a lot of people have never heard of us refer to ourselves in this regional manner. But I could give you a list of a dozen different ways in which we do function as a region. And it's quite impressive. As someone who, I haven't even been here 3 years yet, and I tell you, I see a lot of regional functionality. There is also a lot of regional dysfunctionality. And in trying to get this ecosystem project off the ground, we said, you know what, let's get it going fast and then expand later. So smaller and faster, right? And then expand later. And boy, that just came back to bite us because in the end, there were so many organizations and all of us are examples of this. We don't just work within Cleveland proper. In fact, we don't just work within Cuyahoga County, the county we're located in. All of us have reached beyond our single county. And so in fact, this idea that it'll be easier if we go smaller, in fact, it didn't work. And since then I've had conversations with other people. And there are a lot of examples where small doesn't necessarily mean nimble. And that's been a really good lesson.
So lean toward the nimble, but not necessarily small. I'd like to open it up for questions for a few minutes. What are you wondering about?
Are some of these programs available to private schools or independent schools as well? Or, like, say, you work with a public school system, that's not an option for them, but is it optional for other independent schools to participate in the same program?
So we work with all of the different schools, we have different programs going. We don't have this exact second grade program going with anyone else, other than we've got something similar that can go with Shaker Public Schools, it's another public school district. I think one of the things we look for too is when we're working with different schools, different places, what are the real needs, where does it really mesh? And so we have a great school like HB, which has really wonderful science education. There we look for other ways to maybe give, in their smaller classroom sizes, what can we do to give them a chance to really, our site is torn up because we're on a construction board, we need to have a place where you can do an archaeology day, or can we do something special where the kids are actually coming